about sports in a generational way. We've all had those conversations with our father about sports. I'm no different. We figured we'd share some of our thoughts. What's cool about this, too, is we are two completely different generations. I'm Kyle, the millennial. This is my father, Tim. He is the baby boomer. We're going to argue about things. We're going to have different opinions. As you millennials watching know, most of the time I'm going to be right, but every once in a while he may get a couple of good things in there.
And for those boomers who are watching, or just dads in general, you've heard speeches like that from your kids all the time. So we're ready to go.
As a dad myself now, I'm sure that I will start having those conversations and hearing that as well.
You will, and you will then all of a sudden realize how smart I truly am.
Yeah, maybe. But we do have a topic we want to discuss today where I truly believe in, you disagree with some of these points, and that's when it comes to the state of baseball at this time.
Both agree it's broken.
It's very broken.
It's the greatest game ever invented. It's been around for, 175 years. I do agree on one portion of how you want to tweak the game. I think it's time for that. As much as I hate the DH, and I know you don't like it as well, National League has always been real baseball. American League is softball. But we're at the point now where we're going to be playing softball in both leagues. So it's time to make at least one drastic change.
Yeah, and I have 4 drastic changes that I think will change baseball, but not hurt the integrity of the game. The game's still going to be played the way, but they're changes that need to happen to make the game better. First and foremost, like you just said, you can see the Cubs stuff behind me. I'm a National League fan as well. I loved in 2016 when Travis Wood went and pitched and then hit and then went out into the field and then pitched again later. I love that. It's one of my favorite moments as a baseball fan. But the time's gone. We're done. It's time to rip off that Band-Aid. It is time for us to bring DH across the entirety of baseball and just call it a day.
Unfortunately, you're right. I mean, I love Ohani from the Angels.
Ohtani.
Yeah, Ohtani, sorry. Pitcher, plays in the field. We haven't seen anything like that since Babe Ruth. And I would argue that he's done things that Babe Ruth never did because he's actually pitching on a consistent basis.
Right.
And he's had one of the greatest hitting years I've seen in a long, long time.
He's amazing. He's one of my all-time favorite players to watch. He's unbelievable. And you know what? He's doing it, though, with the DH. He's in the American League. So he plays DH, 4 days and pitches on the 5th, and it works out well for him. So you can still see things like that in baseball. But at this point, you need to make some changes to baseball. You just have to rip off that Band-Aid and bring the DH across the leagues.
I agree, and I think because it's time to rip off that Band-Aid, I think one thing that needs to happen is our notions of the American League and National League have become muddled. You've seen it in the NFL. The NFC plays the AFC all season long. It rotates. It's not like it was back when the NFL played the never played the AFL. And in baseball, it's not like it was when the NL only played the National League teams, and the only time you saw the American League counterparts was in the All-Star game and in a World Series.
Right.
Players move across leagues all the time now, so it's just time. Let's take a global look at this. You came up with a plan and you brought it to me 3 or 4 years ago originally.
Right.
You worked on it since, and I actually like it. I think it's a great idea because it takes some of the things that work in football where you're engaged in every season and your team always has a chance. We can bring that to baseball and make it work.
Right.
Some traditionalists are going to look at this and they're going to scoff at it. I understand that.
I mean, that's baby boomers. So all that's happening right now is you're agreeing with the millennial sports point of view being correct. So I'm going to count that as a W in my category.
You can count it as a W to this extent. I've taken a look at this. I liked it from the time I saw it because I think it is time. Bring the two leagues together, change things up, and keep every market in every season, every year.
Right. And before I
That
go
I'll turn it
further,
over
let
to
me
you.
break it down. Yeah, this is my second point I think that we really need to do to save baseball. Once you bring the DH across all leagues, and we're already playing interleague games
Mhm.
now. Again, it just reinforces the time to bring the DH into baseball full time. And then we get a chance to actually reorganize baseball. You and I have talked about this. The wild card in baseball, it works in football, it works in other sports. I don't like it in baseball at all. You have 162 games, and what you're seeing the Yankees and the Red Sox in it every single year, which is great for their fans, but not great for the rest of baseball. You're seeing the Dodgers and the Giants in it every single year. Again, great for those West Coast fans, not great for the rest of baseball. And baseball has always been about winning in the regular season.
Exactly.
Now,
We've talked about that.
right,
Winning is everything in baseball. And if you don't win, you don't get in. The
right.
wild card has watered that down, and that's one of the things I hate the most about the changes they've made.
Yep. So I'm going to show, I put this together, briefly, but just to kind of give the odds out of what this could look like. So I think a big thing we need to do is look at it as a whole, get rid of the three divisions with 5 teams and make it 5 divisions with 3 teams each. What this does is it gives everybody a 1/3 chance to get in the playoffs. You keep the playoff format the same. I love the 1 game playoff. It's amazing. It's one of my favorite things baseball has ever done. And you're still going to do that. You're still going to have the bottom 2 division winners face off in a 1 game series. And then you have the NL and ALDS still be a 5 game series, and the championships at 7 games. But this breaks it up in a very nice way. It keeps in-state rivalry, so you still have San Francisco, LA together. You throw the Angels in there to make it an LA market. You keep the Cubs and the Cardinals together because it's such a great
It's one
rivalry.
of the greatest rivalries in baseball. You can't break that up.
No, not at all. And you bring the Sox into it as well. It's a crosstown rival.
Right.
Now they're fighting for divisions. Are you kidding me? How much better can it get than that? You bring in-state rivalries like Pittsburgh and Philadelphia together and throw in Washington that's close. You come over here, the Twins and the Brewers, the Packers and Vikings already have it. It just
Right.
reinforces that Minnesota rivalry. The Houston and the Texas Rangers and Tampa Bay Rays, you throw them together. You may think, well, why don't you throw Miami with the Rays? Well, I don't think the Rays are going to stay in Tampa.
I don't think so. We lived there. I lived there for almost 15 years. You lived there for 10. And I love the Rays. I became a Rays fan. They have a
Right.
great organization, but they play in the absolute worst stadium I have ever been in my life. I mean, I've seen AAA parks that are better than that. And I
It's
think
bad.
there's 2 teams that are possibly going to move. The A's being the one. I think the Rays are going to move unless they build a stadium, but there doesn't seem to be a heart in the community to
No.
build it. I heard some of the same arguments back when Milwaukee was thinking about building now the AmFam Park. They're going, well, we'll just get another team. Tampa's never going to see another team.
It's not going to happen.
So I think you have to look at reality and put them someplace where they may move to anyways.
Yeah, I think Tampa Bay is going to move to Vegas at some point, which leads this to being still a great division that can keep in there. If anything, they may move to Charlotte, has been conversations. I don't think Montreal's on the table. Those are what I have. And then, you have the in-state rivalries here again, right? You have Cincinnati and Cleveland. Now they're going to be facing off every single year for division titles and playoff berths, and you throw in the Detroit Tigers. But what this does is it nationalizes the game because you're going to have those local rivalries that you already have. The Cubs and Sox are already a thing, so are the Cardinals with them. You have the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Mets. Now they're fighting it out every single year. And it's going to increase free agent spending, right? And it's going to make that more exciting because you can be a bad team. Look at the Cincinnati, Cleveland, Detroit, right?
Right?
I mean, those weren't great teams.
Not even thinking about being in the playoffs this last year.
No. Now all of a sudden you have Cincinnati Reds in the playoffs. Thinks what that does to free agent spending when they were so close at
Right.
that point. They're not competing. They're not ready to compete. Yet you can be ready to compete at any single time. Look at Oakland and San Diego would have been battling out. You look at, Pittsburgh wouldn't have been. They got to figure that out. But Philly and Washington, all of a sudden you have Baltimore's getting a better chance rather than being in the basement versus the Red Sox and the Rays and
And you've got the Yankees and the Mets in Boston, which would be a great division.
yeah,
What I really like is, just like in football, We're Packers fans. We're the black and blue divisions,
Right.
but we pay attention to what's going on in Seattle and
Right.
in Los Angeles and in Miami and Tampa Bay.
Right.
You'll be doing that in baseball now.
Right.
Your team might be in it every single year, or as you said, one little tweak, and all of a sudden you're in the playoffs again. And once
Right.
you get in the playoffs, anything can happen.
Well, what's great about this too is look at, speaking of the NFL, look at last year with the NFC East. I mean, all those teams had bad records, but they were still in it. All the teams were bad, which means every single game was important because you still have a chance to get in the playoffs. And once you get into the playoffs, it's anybody's game. Everybody knows that. Anybody can beat anybody on any single day. And that's what you're going to bring to baseball. Are you going to have some bad divisions? Of course, could San Diego, Arizona, and the A's all have terrible teams? Sure, but they're still sending somebody to the playoffs, which means their fans are still engaged. They're still going to stadiums, and they're still going to be competing on a regular basis.
And what I really like about this is it's not that you have in baseball right now, where baseball is saying whoever's got the best record can pick who they're going to play. You're making a circus of the playoffs, right. And I hate the idea. It's so convoluted.
Right.
It's so ridiculous. This is straightforward. This keeps everybody engaged. Right. If you win, you're in.
Right.
And that's what we're going for in this.
Well, and the playoff format they have now is great. Like I said at the beginning, I love the playoff format. I really do. This just makes it where it's divisional, and if you want to expand, you can. I don't know why you would, especially since every team has a 1/3 chance. There's no reason for that, but These keeps people engaged. Imagine the trading deadline now, right? I mean, the Diamondbacks, right, weren't a great team last year. Everybody's talking about, who are they going to trade? They might not be trading. Why are you going to trade your future away at the trade deadline now when you have a 1/3 chance every single year? Sign a couple players, build around a guy, and all of a sudden you have a chance again. The Cubs, it broke my heart. They traded off my whole team.
The whole team.
I cried, especially when Javi Baez left and Anthony Rizzo left, and even Chris Bryant. I shed a lot of tears. I loved watching those guys play. Now against St. Louis and the Sox, I mean, why are you going to trade your core? You have such a great team there.
Exactly. And the problem with baseball, and it's said it for years, and I actually agree with it, 162 games is a really long time. That's a marathon, and we're in a society now where we don't watch marathons. It's all a 100-yard dash. A lot of these teams were out of it by June and July.
Right.
And then how do you draw fans at that point?
You don't.
This keeps fans coming to the ballpark because you're in it till the very last day in most of these divisions.
Right. How many empty stadiums do you see at the end of the year?
Sadly, too many.
Right. You're not going to be doing that anymore. You're going to have now where look at the Brewers, Blue Jays, and Twins. Those are three pretty small market teams. Toronto's a big market, but in the same aspects of it, they're going to be competing all of a sudden. LA and San Francisco, you don't want to break that rivalry. That goes back to the beginning of baseball. But throwing the Angels in there, now the LA market's facing each other. It increases that rivalry. This is going to help every single team in baseball, and it's going to keep baseball more interesting towards the end of the season.
I can't wait to hear any of the viewers' comments on this and get their feedback on this.
Yeah.
On to your next change.
My third change, this is my favorite. This is the one where you and I disagree the most, but it's brilliant and it works.
I only disagree in one specific part of this.
Fair enough. Now, to be fair, this wasn't fully my idea, right? Okay, it wasn't my idea at all. Yeah. I can't take any credit. I heard it from Mike Greenberg, but I fell in love with it and advanced upon it to what I think it could work to be at, and that's you create the 12th inning. You create the spectacle. You make it amazing. What's the greatest thing in sports to watch? It's when soccer and hockey go into a shootout. There's nothing better. It's amazing. I'll never forget watching USA versus Canada in the Olympics, and it's down to the final. You have Sidney Crosby, one of the greatest players of my generation, versus Ryan Miller, who was the greatest American-born goalie at that time, and it's one-on-one for the gold. Sidney got it for the goal. Ryan Miller, unfortunately, my favorite player, didn't fully recover from that, but it was amazing. It's iconic no matter if you're Canada or USA. We're bringing that to baseball.
And I was a Lightning fan. I went to several games every year.
Yeah,
I love the shootout. You get it set up, and it's easy to do and adopt in baseball. And look, I am a baseball purist. You know that.
you are.
I actually love pitchers duels because it's exciting to watch.
Yeah,
I was a catcher. The strategy that goes into it, it's the best part of the game. However, games you brought up to me before, games in 1981 were 2.5 hours. Now
right,
they're 4 hours, which is ridiculous with
right,
no end point. We're trying to get kids back into the
right.
game. You've got an 8 and a 5-year-old. They're not going to sit at the stadium, nor will you want them to be there
No,
for a 13, 14 inning game that's taking 6 hours. It's not even realistic. This puts an end point on it, but it puts a fun end point on it.
right. So the 12th inning, right? So you have overtime. A game goes 9 innings. You're going to give them 2 extra innings to figure it out. You go to the 10th and to the 11th. And the hard part is now, when I'm taking my kids to a game, it's going 10th and 11th. I don't know when this game's going to end. This game's already gone 5.5 hours at this point. I got to work the next day. My kids got school the next day. I can't sit here this whole time. I'm begging for this game to be done, or I'm leaving early because it doesn't matter at that point. What the 12th inning is, it's what everybody loves in baseball. It's a home run derby. It's the most watched thing in baseball is during the All-Star break with the home run derby. So let's bring it to every single baseball game as a possibility. So what you do is you pick your own player, right? You bring out the cages. You have your designated pitcher, whoever that player wants to be. You can pick your player. It doesn't matter, but it can be one guy. You can have one guy sitting on your bench. Literally, that's all he's there to do is this. That's fine. But he comes up to the plate against another guy. You get 3 pitches where you get to see it, to get a feel for it, and then it's 6 pitches. 6 pitches in a row. It doesn't matter if you swing. It doesn't matter if you don't swing. It doesn't matter what happens. You get 6 pitches, and that's it to hit as many home runs as you can. And then the other guy gets 6 pitches. And if you're tied at the end of that, then it's 1 to 1 to 1 to 1 until somebody hits one and somebody doesn't to win the game.
I think it's time. It's brilliant. I liked it when I heard Greeny talking about it. And unlike some of his other ideas, this one actually accomplishes something. It puts a time limit on baseball that it's needed for quite a while.
Right.
You know when you're going to have an end point. It brings a lot of excitement. Can you imagine watching SportsCenter highlights where they're going to be talking about all the games that go to that 12th
Right.
inning and watching that home run derby? It's a great idea.
Yep.
Up to we get to the last game of the World Series. And that's when we get to Game 7 of the World Series, I'm sorry, you play it out until it's done.
See, and how can you change the game like that, though?
It's not changing the game. It's actually, look at Wimbledon. They do the same thing there. You've got tiebreakers in every set, but when you get to that 5th set, you're playing it out until somebody wins. And in baseball, I don't want baseball's ultimate prize, the World Series, being decided on a home run derby. I want it decided by the pitchers and the batters who play the
But
game.
your comparison doesn't work, though, because
Sure.
when it comes to Wimbledon, it's one-on-one. You're not changing how the game is played. If we're going to put this in every other game, you're fundamentally changing how baseball runs. You're going to change the way pitchers are on the roster because you're not going to need pitchers that go that long anymore. You're going to completely change the way we look at baseball rosters. So you can't tell everybody, hey, we're going to play this way, but if you get to Game 7 of the World Series, you better be ready to go 18 innings if it goes 18 innings.
Look, I hate it, and we can argue about this later, but it is possible to be a Brewer fan and a Cubs fan if you're from my era. One thing I've disliked the most is Craig Counsell's brought it in where you're changing out pitchers every inning. We'll talk about the other part of your plan in just a second, but I don't like that. Pitchers that start a game should be expected to go 6 and 7 innings, and when you get to the World Series, I think you have to let the pitchers, the fielders, end it. You're not gonna do anything else. I like the other changes you're gonna talk
What's
about.
the most iconic endings in World Series history? What's the 2 everybody always talks about? They talk about the Kirk Gibson home run in Game 1, and they talk about the Gary Carter home run in Game 7 to walk off.
I'll go back to Joe Carter, Bill Mazeroski as well.
Joe Carter, not Gary Carter.
Yeah, he was a great catcher, though.
He was.
Joe Carter's home run, the ultimate, bottom of the 9th, 2 outs. He hits a home run and it's
Right.
a walk-off. That's why you keep the game going until the ultimate end in a seventh game. I'm not saying we can't do this, do what you're
But it's
suggesting in
still
every
more
other game.
exciting. Carlton Fisk, he waves it in for a home run to end the game.
Yes,
You
and he was
bring that in. One of the most iconic moments of my era was Ken Griffey Jr. going up in the home run derby with a backwards hat and winning the home run derby. Everybody loves home runs. You're telling me that game 7 of the World Series, number one, you still get 11 innings to end this thing. It's still on the field. It's still on the pitchers. You still want to win this before it gets to there. But once it gets there, you're telling me you don't want to see what do we have? Otani versus who's a big hitter in the other league.
Christian Yelich.
Sure. Or what's his name from the Yankees? Why can't I think of his name?
Oh,
Aaron Judge.
Judge.
You're telling me you don't want to see Otani versus Aaron Judge
Yes.
against each other to win the World Series?
Yes, but I want to see that with real, not the pitching coach pitcher or the batting coach pitcher. I want to see Otani as the pitcher against Aaron Judge.
Yeah.
In the 14th inning, if it comes to that.
You got to end it. The games are taking
No.
too long. It keeps you excited. I mean, imagine too with when you're in the seats, right? You're changing the mindset because now you're not only sitting in the seats just saying when is this game going to end. You're sitting in the ninth of a tie ball games, begging this thing to go 2 extra innings so you can see a 12th inning.
And that's
it's the
great
same
for
thing
the
in the
regular
World
season.
Series.
No, not in Game 7. Game 7 still needs to be real baseball all the way through.
I think you're wrong. I think most people here are going to agree with me on this.
We'll let the viewers.
And it's going to be
know.
better. But we're going to move on to my 4th point where baseball needs to make a change. And this is huge. You mentioned it, right? Craig Counsell changing pitchers every 30 seconds, right? We have pitching changes during innings that are taking 10, 20 minutes to go on, and it just makes these games 4 hours. So I have a very fundamental change to baseball, and I think it's brilliant because it's my idea. I can't help it. I'm a smart guy. But what I think,
You're a millennial.
Exactly. But what I think we need to do is you can have as many pitching changes as you want in a game, right? But it has to be in between innings. During an inning, per game, you get 1 pitching change, barring injury. Meaning if you're in the middle of the 5th inning and you decide that you want to change, when you're pitching, you want to change a pitcher, that's your 1 for the game. You don't get any more in the 6th, 7th, 8th. You have to let that pitcher pitch, and then after he's done pitching, then you can change your pitcher. I think it brings back a chess aspect to baseball that you're going to lose with the DH being a part of it, and I think it's going to speed up the games. It doesn't take any extra time to change a pitcher between the 2nd and the 3rd, right? But it does take a lot of time and puts a lot of time strain on baseball when you're changing pitchers while you're in the middle of the inning.
And look, this isn't the first time they've changed how pitchers are brought in and out. Back when Dick Williams was managing the Oakland A's way back in the early 70s, they used to, if a pinch hitter was coming up that was a lefty, Dick Williams would come out and change his pitcher. The Reds would come in and they'd change their batter. He'd come out and change the pitcher before they even pitched, so they made the change. Yeah, you can't do that. You get a change once before the hitter comes up, and that's what you guys
think
say.
About it. What's been the giant time constraint? Like you said, I made the point, right? In 1981, the average baseball game time was 2.5 hours. That's when people loved it. And then all of a sudden in 1987, the game's now taking 3 hours to today, where we just had 4-hour World Series per game. Who's going to watch those? I mean, I'm not. If the Cubs aren't in it, I'm not watching it. And even as a Cubs fan, it's hard to stay up till 2 in the morning to watch a game.
Well, remember in 2016 when we were down in Tampa, what time were we watching the end of the game? Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was a great game, but it should have ended long before. And this is
that was a 9-inning game, right?
But and I'll give you a side note. Baseball needs to start some of these games earlier.
100%.
They've lost so many kids because the games are starting at 9 o'clock.
100%. And that can be a 5th point that we can get to. Sure. But going back to this, as you can tell, we are very ADD in our conversations. We're going to try and keep it on track here. But when it comes to the pitching changes, it changes the fundamental sides of the game. And you mentioned starters, right? You loved watching starters go 7, 8. Yeah. I did too. I'm a Kerry Wood fan. Kerry Wood is my all-time favorite player. My first game I watched with you was Kerry Wood's 20 strikeout game. I'll never forget. You said you need to watch this because you'll never see this again.
Correct.
And I did, and I sat for the whole game and watched Kerry Wood pitch, and I was a Cubs fan and a baseball fan ever since. So I am 100% with you on that. But this changes it too, right? Because now all of a sudden you have a pitcher in the first inning that gives up, 5 runs, right? Well, there's one out,
Right.
and he's given up 5 innings. Now you pull him, and you might still pull him, but you got a decision to make now because you only get one time during an inning to change your pitcher. So are you going to use that now, or are you going to go back to old baseball where you're going to force that pitcher to figure it out?
I actually like this idea because it is going to shorten the games.
Right.
It's going to force managers. You and I talked about this last year when Burns for the Brewers had a no-hitter going in the ninth inning, and he was pulled.
Oh,
I mean, you never pull a guy. That's why the Brewers get lost in the playoffs.
right.
Because it was just baseball gods looking down on him going, you never pull a pitcher when he's got a no-hitter going.
That was
Give
disgusting.
him the shot.
That was disgusting.
That was just one time at immortality, and it was just taken away from him
Right.
because they're watching pitch counts. I think this idea is going to force the managers to really think about what they're doing. And you're right, it's going to bring strategy back into the game. Do I let the guy who's blowing up right now try to figure it out, or I just give it in and fine, I'm going to have to make the change now, knowing I'm not going to be able to do it later in the game?
Well, especially later in the season, right? Because now you have a 1/3 chance of making it if all these changes go into play. And all of a sudden, I'm 1 game back, and my pitcher just gave up 5 runs
Right.
in the first inning, and there's 3 games left in the season. Do I see if he figures this out, or do I need to pull him now because I still got a chance to go to the playoffs? And it's my only chance. I don't have a wild card. This is my
Right.
chance. I have to win this division.
You have to win to get in. It's baseball the way I grew up watching it. You had to win. Granted, there was some playoff teams, but you still had to win your division
Right.
to get into the playoffs. And I love bringing it back to that, and these changes will do that. I think most baseball fans will agree with this, but we'll find out when we read the comments later on.
I don't see how you disagree. Like I said, if you want to change a pitcher, you want to have a different pitcher for the first inning, the second inning, the third inning, the
Oh,
fourth
God
inning.
help us.
But go for it, right? Because you're making that change in the middle of an inning. It doesn't take any more time to do that. The
Right.
game's not going to go any longer. But that pitcher's going to pitch.
And you don't have the interminable pitching changes in the
Right.
middle of a game, which I don't even, at this point with the technology they have as far as the groundskeepers, there's no reason a pitcher's coming in and taking 8 pitches between when
Right.
he's coming in to make a pitching change. Granted, it's only a couple minutes, but a couple minutes when we're talking about a 6-hour game is ridiculous. Just come in,
Right.
start,
Well,
pitch.
and think about the chess move at the end of the game if you still have that pitching change. Talking about the World Series, imagine Game 7 where you still have that pitching change in your back pocket. It's the 9th inning, and their lefty power hitters coming to the plate, and you still have that move in the middle of an inning to bring out that lefty pitcher.
Which is brilliant, and it's why you do let them play
Yeah,
out the
'cause
entire game.
now that manager on the other side has to continuously think about that. He still has that pitching change in his pocket.
It does bring it brings strategy back in the game, and I jokingly called the American League softball because of the DH, but you do lose a lot of strategy when you just put in a DH for the pitcher.
Right.
This actually is making managers have to think again and have
Right.
to decide, okay, how are we going to manage this? What kind of moves am I going to need to
Right.
make sure that I'm
But
ready at the end of the game?
it also limits the analytics analysts, whatever you want to call it, in the game right now, like Craig Counsell, that are trying to make all these different chess moves to do this and that, and I'm going to bring up a lefty because a lefty's coming to the. No, you actually have to let your pitchers pitch. You actually have to trust your players to figure it out.
And it was bringing, and granted, I'm going to sound old school to the nth degree at this point, but I remember my favorite team of all time is the '82 Brewers. Harvey Keene was the manager. He managed by his gut. He managed by what he was seeing on the field. Now it's what's the computer say.
Right.
Moneyball has been good for some teams in helping them
Right.
compete, but it's also taken the manager. Now he's managing by a computer instead of managing by what he sees on the field.
Well, and Moneyball's great for players I'm going to pick up in free agency,
Sure.
right? But it's not great for decisions you make during a game. Like, go out there and play the game. I think that's hurt the integrity of the game more than anything. And I actually think making all of these changes brings back integrity to the game. So, I mean, just to go back on the points, you're going to bring DH across all leagues, right? You hate it. I get it. I'm not a big fan of it. It is what it is. It needs to happen at this point. You then change the divisions like I had shown. You bring it to 5 3-team divisions. Everybody's got a 1/3 chance every single year. You keep the playoff format the same, and you make it that you have to win the division to go to the playoffs. It makes it more important in the regular season. You bring in the 12th inning. Even in the Game 7 of the World Series, you bring in
Not
the
in Game
12th
7.
inning. And
Not
the
in Game 7.
and I think the biggest change, the most impactful change, and the best change, I think the divisions are the best change, but the second best change that you could put in right now is you get one pitching change during an inning.
I
That's
think
it.
that's a great idea. I actually think it's an idea whose time has come. When you're looking at baseball as a whole, you're not junking it up with a circus about choosing who you're going to play in the playoffs. Screw that. I want to see the game played basically the same way it's been played for
Right.
175 years. But these ideas take a great game and just shortens it up, and it brings some of the strategy back into the game.
Well, it brings back to watching the pitcher. Like you said, that was my favorite thing was going to see Kerry Wood pitch.
Sure.
I loved every second of it. It was the most magical thing I'd ever seen. And I saw Sammy Sosa hit 3 home runs, right? But it was to me, it was better to watch Kerry Wood pitch. Am I biased? Yeah, he's my all-time favorite player. But at the same time, watching Randy Johnson pitch back in the day, watching Greg Maddux, when he came back to the Cubs, even with the Braves, it was an amazing thing to watch. And you're going to bring that back to baseball, even if it's one whole inning, right? That's fine, but
But
you got to
you know,
make that choice.
along those lines, it's also going to force these pitchers to actually pitch again instead
Right,
of just throwing as hard as you can. I
right,
want to see them actually have to make decisions, be a Greg Maddux, and really paint the edges if you
right,
have to. But you're pitching again. And Kerry Wood, I'll never forget bringing you in there because I knew you'd fall in love with it. I wanted to introduce you to baseball. It
right.
was a perfect time, and that's how I got you into it. And you've been a fan ever since.
Yep. And then just as a fifth change on this before we wrap up here, I think you're absolutely right in moving up the start times of the game. Starting the World Series games at 8 o'clock is stupid. It's just dumb. Like, I mean, when does the Super Bowl start? It starts at 5.
Right.
Why do they do that? Because if the game ends at 8, right? If not earlier. Well, it won't end earlier, but 8, 9 the latest. You need, even on weekdays, you need to be starting these games at 5 p.m. Central Time or 6 p.m. the latest Central Time, 7 Eastern Time. You need to give kids a chance to stay up and watch the game. That's how you build a generational audience. It killed me. My son was very young
Mm-hmm.
at that time. He was 3, but he started watching the game with me. Imagine if the game started at 6 or 7 Eastern Time. We were in Eastern Time Zone at that time. I mean, now he gets to watch a few extra hours with his dad watching the Cubs game, versus I'm not letting him stay up till 2 in the morning.
Well, he couldn't stay up. But it also, and I disregard the argument that, well, the network, all the audience is there at past 9 o'clock. No, it's not. The audience is going to be there at any time. I mean,
Right,
when I was a kid, they used to reel in a TV into the classroom so we could
right,
watch the World Series games in the afternoon. The audience will be there. If you start a game at 7 o'clock Central Time,
right.
8 o'clock Eastern Time, people will be there and they'll watch. And then on Saturday afternoon, there's absolutely no reason you can't start a game at 3 in the afternoon and just
Nope.
play it out. The audience will be there. They're going to get their revenues. But again, it's going to bring in the kids so they can actually watch and become a fan of the greatest game
Right.
ever invented.
People will watch the game, like you said, especially if you bring in the 12th inning, right?
Yeah,
Because, now if it gets to the 12th inning and you start the game at, 6 o'clock, right? The 12th inning's happening at 9 o'clock. I'm
right.
going to let my kids up stay a little bit later to watch the 12th inning and watch a home run derby. It's just going to happen. It makes it more exciting. You're bringing more of an audience to it, and these changes not only save baseball, but take it from what has become a regional sport and makes it a national game again.
I don't disagree with you, with the exception of the seventh inning, but we'll talk in Game 7. We'll talk about that later on. But
yeah, to recap, this is what baseball needs to do to save it, in my opinion, which I believe is the right opinion. And it looks like I got a baby boomer on my side with most of this here, which is you bring the DH across the league. You change the divisions, and it doesn't. With the DH, it doesn't matter who's American, who's national. You change them to make it 5 divisions with 3 teams each. You have to win your division to get in the game. You keep the same playoff format because it's amazing. You then bring in the 12th inning where it's a home run derby to end the game, and you change it so you get 1 pitching change during an inning per game. You save baseball.
Well, we've talked about this, we've made fun about millennial versus boomer, and we've been arguing about this, but we've actually talked about this for years, and, you and I worked on this, the suggestions for this, dating back to Bud Selig being commissioner.
Right.
I think it made sense then. I think it makes even more sense today to do this because it is time for the DH, as much as I hate to say it, it's time for the DH to come in.
It is.
But I really want to hear what our viewers seem to think about this, and I'd love to hear from generations. Let's hear the fathers and sons talk about it and get their ideas on this. I want to see what they want. And also, if they've got ideas for other shows they'd like to see us do, leave it in the comments.
Leave a comment below. We plan on doing a weekly show. We're going to have something new to talk about every single week. We'd love to hear what more we want to talk about. We have some plans out there to talk about uniforms, to talk about generational quarterbacks, to talk about many different topics, but we'd love to hear what you want us to talk about. Leave messages in the comment below. If this helped you talk to your dad as a millennial to prove him wrong, let me know. I'd love to hear it. If the baby boomer proved you wrong, well, we don't need to hear those comments, right? We're gonna put up a scoreboard up here, and we're gonna do it that way. But this has been amazing. As always, I appreciate talking about you about sports. Again, my name's Kyle. This is Tim. Thank you for joining us. Please like and subscribe below. Again, leave comments. We'd love to hear your feedback on the show, and we'd love to hear some suggestions on what we can talk about to help your dad and son or daughter or mother talk more about sports in a generational way. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.